All right, let's dive right in. We're going to explore one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, one of the most challenging principles in modern project management. It's Tenet 6, optimize the whole. And really, it's all about breaking down those invisible walls that keep our teams apart and stop us from doing our best work.
Welcome to Bodhi Unified Flow. We're here to help you do two things: simplify the complex and amplify your performance. So here's our roadmap. First, we'll unpack something I call the optimization paradox. You know, that weird situation where everyone's doing great work, but the project is failing. Then we'll introduce the solution, optimizing the whole. After that, we'll get into the right mindset with systems thinking, look at some practical tools for integration, and finally, talk about what it takes to become a team that truly thinks holistically.
And my promise to you is that by the end of this, you'll be able to spot the hidden costs of that silo mentality from a mile away. You'll know exactly what it means to optimize the whole, and you'll walk away with real practical tools and a new way of thinking to break down those barriers and really elevate your project outcomes.
Okay, first up, the optimization paradox. This is something I'm sure you've felt before. It's that moment you realize individual teams are absolutely crushing their goals, but the project as a whole is either late, over budget, or just not working.
It's a really frustrating question, isn't it? How can our best, most focused individual work actually lead to project failure? It feels like it should be impossible, but it happens all the time. The answer, it turns out, isn't about working harder, it's about how we're trained to see the work itself. This really shows the two different worlds. On the left is the old way, a laser focus on our own tasks. Sure, it maximizes local performance, but the blind spots are huge. It completely ignores all the waiting around, the handoffs, the time when no real value is being created. And that leads to integration nightmares, tons of rework, and pretty soon, a blame culture where everyone's pointing fingers. But on the right, when you focus on the whole, the goal shifts. It's not about local speed anymore, it's about customer value, about killing waste everywhere, and creating a culture of shared ownership.
And this brings us to the root of the problem, the silo mentality. It's that natural tendency for teams to put their heads down and just perfect their own little piece of the puzzle without looking up to see the big picture. And you know, this isn't a new idea. It goes back more than a century to the old factory line way of thinking, where you break work down into tiny separate steps. That just doesn't work for the kind of complex, interconnected projects we have today.
So if optimizing our own little part of the world is the problem, what's the answer? Well, that brings us to the big idea for today, a really fundamental shift in perspective called optimize the whole.
To get our heads around this, we can go all the way back to Aristotle. You've heard this before. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Now that sounds a bit philosophical, but in project management, it's everything. Think about it. A perfectly written piece of code, a brilliant architectural design, a flawless component, they're all just parts. The real value only shows up when they click together, seamlessly, to create a successful outcome.
And that right there is the heart of Tenet 6. It demands that we stop looking at our projects as just a long checklist of independent tasks. Instead, we have to see the work as a single, flowing, integrated value stream. And that means every single decision, every action from every team has to be aligned with one thing, the ultimate goal of delivering value. And when you make this shift, the benefits are, well, they're massive. You're maximizing the real value the customer gets. You start to see and eliminate all this hidden waste you were blind to before. Conflict goes down because you're not just throwing your work over the wall to the next team. This naturally builds collaboration and trust. And all of it makes your project flow better and become way more predictable.
But to really do this, to truly optimize the whole, you need more than just a new process. You actually need a new way of thinking. This is where the power of systems thinking comes in. It's about learning to see all those invisible connections that hold a project together.
This picture illustrates it perfectly. Instead of a straight line, a handoff from the architect to the structural engineer to the MEP team, look what's happening. They're all converging, working together in a shared process, collaborating in real time. Their individual goals take a backseat to the one big, shared goal of the project. That is exactly what systems thinking looks like in action.
Now, a core idea in systems thinking is these common patterns or archetypes that show up everywhere. A classic one is called limits to success. I bet you've seen this before. A team works like crazy and sees huge gains at first, but then their progress just flatlines. Why? Because their success slammed into a hidden bottleneck somewhere else in the system. The example here is perfect. A development team is coding faster than ever, but the project is going nowhere because every piece of code gets stuck in a tiny, overwhelmed security and legal review process. Optimizing the whole means you stop yelling at the developers to go even faster, and you go fix the real bottleneck.
Okay, so we get the what and the why. Now let's talk about the how. In this section, we're going to get practical and look at the actual mechanisms you can use to start breaking down those walls. There are really 4 key moves to get started. First, you have to visualize the entire value stream from start to finish so you can actually see where the delays are. Second, build real cross-functional teams that have all the skills needed inside the team itself. Third, bring people from the end of the process, like operations or manufacturing, in at the very beginning. And finally, and this one is crucial, you have to align the money. If your contracts reward teams for their individual performance, you are literally paying them to stay in their silos. And the great news is, we have powerful tools to help. Things like target value design, which flips the script and forces you to design to a cost from day one. There's the last planner system, which brings the people actually doing the work into the planning process. We have digital tools like BIM, which create a shared virtual space for everyone to collaborate. And then there are relational contracts, which are a total game changer. They set things up so that everybody wins together when the project succeeds.
This brings us to our final and, I think, most important section. Because at the end of the day, optimizing the whole isn't really about the tools or the process diagrams. It's about people. It's a fundamental shift in culture.
The end goal here is a big one. The idea is to transform our teams from a collection of separate, maybe even competing silos into a single, integrated learning organism. A team that can adapt, solve problems, and deliver incredible value together. So let's wrap it up. In just the last few minutes, you've gotten a framework for spotting these silo-driven problems. You've learned what the optimize the whole principle is all about. And you now know about the mindsets and the tools you can use to build real collaboration and deliver so much more value on your projects.
So I'll leave you with one final question to take with you. The very next time you're in a project meeting and a tough decision comes up, just ask yourself this: am I defending my silo right now, or am I trying to optimize the whole?
For anyone who wants to go deeper, these are some of the foundational books and papers where these ideas come from. Thank you so much for joining us at Bodhi Unified Flow, where we're dedicated to helping you simplify complexity and amplify performance.